Hi, everybody, and welcome to a new presentation for this beautiful event. I'm your host, Eugene Popa, as I hope you would know by now. And we have with us right now Sam Isaacson, who is the Global Director of Consulting at Coach Hub, and also an enthusiastic coach, a coach supervisor, and thought leader on coach tech and organizational coaching. He's actually the first person in the world to offer coaching in virtual reality, and I can't wait to hear more about that. And he has been recognized by EvoCoach as a coaching tech pioneer. He has 3 books that he wrote: How to Thrive as a Coach in Digital World, Coaching with Technology, also Superhuman Coaching, technologies that expand beyond coaching, expand coaching beyond what's humanly possible. And he's also providing a toolkit and mindset for coaches to be as effective and resilient as possible as technology continues to develop. He plays a range of roles across the coaching profession, including sitting on the ICF's Technology Working Group and Coaching Platform Coalition and the EMCC Global and AI Digital Task Force. That's a mouthful, but we'll learn more about that in a moment. He has contributed towards a range of activities across the profession, including the Future of Coaching collaboration, various ICF and EMCC chapters around the world, and the ICF's coaching in organizations, including a founding member of its pilot and the ICF Thought Leadership Institute. He is also chair of the UK government's Coaching Professional Apprenticeship Group, and he regularly speaks at a range of both invite-only and high-profile public conferences, such as this one, and has been guest on several podcasts. So I'm super excited to have Sam Isaacson with us today, because he will talk about superhuman coaching, expanding coaching through technology. So everybody, let's say welcome to Sam, and let's start hearing what he has to say. Thank you so much for saying yes, Sam.
Brilliant. No, it's great to be here, and it's very odd to hear that introduction. It makes me sound like a very busy person, and something that you didn't mention in that intro, but is important to point out as far as how busy I am is concerned, is that I also have got 4 young children, and so my life
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now my life
Amazing.
is full on. Yeah, so today what I'd like to talk about is how to become a superhuman coach, and I will explain exactly what I mean by that in a moment. I was going to begin by introducing myself, and I think that Eugene has done a great job of that, but I'll just explain a bit about Coach Hub. We're probably the biggest provider of coaching around the world. We've got more than 3,500 coaches. Our criteria for bringing on new coaches is extremely high. And we provide that through a digital platform in more than 60 countries around the world. So it's an exciting place to be. It's growing quickly, and yeah, we've got some good partnerships in with EMCC and other organizations around the world that are pushing forward the professionalization of coaching. So it's a real privilege to be a part of their journey. And yeah, as Eugene was pointing out, I've written a couple of books, and I'm involved in the UK government's apprenticeship program around coaching, which is probably the biggest coaching training program in England at the moment. So that's good. So normally the sort of presentation that I'm about to give, I like to be very interactive. Because this is happening asynchronously, it may be the case that as I'm talking, then different questions are coming up for you. And so I'd love it. Just connect with me on LinkedIn, ask any questions you've got. I'm interested in this stuff, so I like to have conversations about it as well. What I'm going to do in the next 15-20 minutes or so before we dive into some demos is think a bit about why technology works, and so why I'm talking about it and why we as coaches ought to be thinking about it at the moment. We'll look a little bit through a systemic lens at the coaching landscape around the world and the profession, the way that that's developing, and what technology is doing to disrupt that. There are some things that are happening right now, and there are some things that are coming very soon, and some things that might be coming at some point in the future. And so we'll just look at a couple of those quickly before diving into some demos. I've got 3, 4, 5, I don't know, we'll see how much time we've got, but you know, we've got a handful of little tools. So hopefully by the end of our time together today, what you should be leaving with is a toolkit of little ideas that you can just pick out in a coaching session. Some of them will be ready to take off the shelf today, and some of them might need you to think a little bit about it and do your own research and find what's going to fit you best, and we'll talk about that as we get there. But before we dive into why technology is important for us as coaches, look, as you just think about this as 2x2 matrix, we like this kind of thing, we're coaches. And in a coaching setting, then often we think about these 2x2 matrices as if being in the top right-hand corner is the right thing to be. And that isn't the case with this one. This is more a tool to raise our awareness, and then we can consider where we'd like to be. The two axes that we've got here is how much you know about technology and how enthusiastic you feel about technology. So how much of a fan you generally are. In the top left corner, you'd be a gadget geek. Now, these titles are extremely judgmental, and so they're intended to be a bit of fun more than of anything that's digging deep into your soul. If you're a gadget geek, you're somebody who doesn't really understand what's happening with the technology, but you do like shiny things. And we all know people like this. It's the person who got the iPad, right, Eugene? Yeah. Somebody who bought the iPad the moment it came out, started taking notes on it just because it's new technology and it's exciting. I'd like to be a part of that, knows what the processing speed of everybody's devices is, likes to join the queue to get the latest device, but doesn't really understand what's happening behind the scenes. And it doesn't really matter to them what's happening behind the scenes. So if their data is being used by third parties, actually they're happy to just accept terms and conditions on things without reading them because they just want to be able to use it and have fun. Maybe that's you. In the bottom left-hand corner, we would have people who also, they don't understand what's happening, but instead of being really excited about it and wanting to use it, they're a little bit more skeptical. So I like alliteration, and so we've gone from gadget geek. Now these would be scared skeptics. And so these are people who, they see what's happening in technology and everything is just moving a bit too fast. And it was really nice to do coaching in the 90s. We like to have those conversations, like to sit down, have a nice cup of tea with somebody, have a coaching conversation, and then meet them in a month's time. And the idea that you would just sit at home and join a platform and coach people through video just feels like it isn't as nice as it used to be. And wouldn't it be great if we could go back to a golden age, like the 1950s, because that's the golden age.
And so these would be the people who would say you can never help anyone in virtual. You have to have an office, brick and mortar. They have to come to you. You have to sit down and follow the process. And I won't be able to teach online because it's about interaction and human lively interaction rather than digital one. Is that the same kind of people?
Yeah, so you will know that you're one of these if in 2019 you were saying it's impossible to coach through video.
I love it.
Which was happening, right? That was a conversation that came up in lots of different conferences, and people said you can't do it. You need the body language, you need to feel the energy and all of that. Yeah. And then it turns out it's all right. You can do it through video. It's not the same, it's different. It doesn't necessarily mean it's better or worse. And there are still some people who would feel uncomfortable through video. And as we're looking at some of the demos later on, I'm sure that there will be some people watching who just think, I don't like the feel of this. I'm not going to be able to do it in the way that I've always coached. And so maybe that's an indicator that kind of this is the corner that you're in. There are other people who are equally as skeptical about technology, but these ones, they actually understand what's happening behind the scenes. And that's the reason why they don't like it. So I call them knowledgeable naysayers, which doesn't spell correctly in English, but it does sound the same. So knowledgeable naysayer is what I've gone for. And these are the people who they understand that when you send your data, it is immediately not confidential anymore because systems have got access to it and the administrators on those systems need to have access to it, and it just makes them profoundly uncomfortable. So these are people who don't have a social media account and they can give you a long list of reasons why they don't have it. They're the people who absolutely limit notifications on their phone and actively choose sometimes to have a dumb phone just because, that's the only reason that I need to use it. And so they try to avoid it as much as possible. Yeah. The reasons they have for that is that they understand it. And then the top right corner would be informed enthusiasts. And again, it's spelt incorrectly, but then it means that they start with the same letter. So I like it. But these are people that they understand all about technology and they're a fan of it. And there's plenty of people in the technology space who really are a fan of technology and are very excited about it. What I'm trying to pitch today, I suppose, is that where we ought to be as coaches, we love learning, we love increasing our awareness of ourselves and about the world. We should always be pushing towards the right-hand side of this. We always want to be finding out more to understand what's happening with this technology so that I'm able to make an informed decision on my own part. And if I'm going to start using coaching, if I'm going to start using technology with my coachees, that we're not doing something silly and we're doing something that's actually going to genuinely add value from an evidence basis, not just because it's fun. And a lot of it is very fun. So, look out for that. And at the same time, we should be trying to get to the middle point on that y-axis. So we're holding technology in a non-judgmental way. It's a tool. It isn't good or bad in its own right. It's only good or bad when it's used by somebody. And so we can then choose which technologies we're going to use. Social media is a great example of this. It's very easy to find stories about how awful social media is, how it turns people into extremists and polarizes people so that you end up with a skewed version of what the world is like. And that's true. And it's also true that some people have met their spouses through social media. And there are some lonely people who have joined communities online. So alongside writing books on coaching technology and bringing up 4 kids and having a full-time job, I also write interactive fiction, which is a real niche. And there's an online community of fans of interactive fiction. And that's their community. That's how they like to interact. And without social media, that wouldn't have been possible. So it isn't the case that social media or any sort of technology is good or bad. It's just a thing. And then it's down to us how we're going to use it. And so we should be holding it in our minds in that neutral, curious state. So hopefully this is a sort of a tool to just increase our awareness and help us just to think, what is my natural tendency towards or away from technology? And therefore, how might I use it in coaching?
I love it.
Now, let's take us right back to, as I said, I call this How to Become Superhuman Coach. My argument here is that technology makes us superhuman. And so let me explain why I'm saying that and what I mean by it. The image that you can see on the right-hand side there is cuneiform writing, one of the earliest forms of writing that ever existed. It's beautifully preserved, isn't it? What an amazing script. You can see there's so much meaning in it, and I can't understand it, but the people that wrote it can. Now, if you just imagine for a moment that you live in a tribe which hasn't discovered writing yet, and then you meet some neighboring tribe that happens to be traveling through or whatever that has discovered writing, the experience that you would have when you meet them is that they seem to know much more about everything than you do or anybody else ever has done, because they've been recording it. If something's important, then they write it down. And once one person's written it down, everybody who can read has got access to that piece of information. They're able to perform much more complex calculations and thinking because they're able to write as part of their thinking process. So they're taking their brain and it's kind of outsourcing it onto a tablet or papyrus or whatever. So they're able to expand their capacity to think. And they seem to be able to communicate across vast distances. They can think collectively, like they've got collective brain, even across generations. So they just know more. They're able to achieve more. They're superhuman. They're able to do things. You can't understand how they're doing it. It just feels like they're superhuman. And this is the case with all of technology, even the basic things like the wheel or the ability to control fire, let alone things like binoculars that give you superhuman vision. The wheel gives you superpowered legs. Somebody who isn't able to move at all with the power of the wheel, the simplest invention, is able to suddenly travel faster than other people over longer distances, gets less tired. Technology turns us into superhumans. And that's what happens. If we're coaches and we use technology intelligently, the experience our coachees will have of us is that we're more creative, we're more dynamic, we're more engaging, and we're using more of our coaching skill to be able to provide value to them in a way that coaches that don't use technology don't. And that's no judgment against their coaching skill. It's just saying if you use technology well, it takes the skill that's already there and it enhances it and multiplies it. The challenge with it all is that we're going through a process of exponential growth at the moment. And this has been happening for several years now. I'm not the first person to say this, but technology is developing at such a rate, and that rate is constantly increasing, that when you look back in time, when you're in exponential growth, it always feels like it has gone flat up to now and then is going up like this. And it doesn't matter at what point on that curve you are, wherever you are, when you look back, it feels flat and is going up like this. And so it always feels like everything's about to go out of control. It felt like that in the 60s. It felt like that in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. It feels like it in the 2020s. It's going to keep on feeling like it. And so our role as coaches who should have this systemic understanding and increased self-awareness, our role is to remain calm and in control of ourselves and of our coaching practice and resilient, even as the technology around us is completely transforming things. It's very easy to look at those individuals who seem to be at the cutting edge of technology and see them as this threat, because they're these superhumans, right? It's like they've got writing and we haven't. They've got access to, well, some stuff that we'll look at today, actually, that feels like, well, how on earth am I meant to be able to compete with that? When actually all we need to do is just take a step or two and we'll be catching up much faster than we think that we can. So when we're at that knee of exponential growth,
isn't it like a mindset that you would have, or people would have when it comes to this? That mindset of it's impossible, or it's difficult. The idea, especially with people over a certain age. I'm looking at my mom, for instance, right? She has a phone, and she recently, she has a smartphone now. Of course, nobody has. Almost nobody else has less than a smartphone, but she just learned how to send WhatsApp messages and make photos and send photos. But that's kind of where she stops. She's like, oh, it's too late for me. I cannot learn this anymore. And I think that's all to do with the mindset rather than anything else. Is like you said yourself, let's go back to the good old days in the 1930s, whatever, like that. Those are the good old days, but they are the good old days because we grew up with them. We are accustomed to them, and anything that comes close to change is just feels like a threat. Is that it, or what do you think it is?
Yeah, so Douglas Adams, who wrote The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, he wrote, and I mean, he wrote it in a fiction book, and so it wasn't him saying it, he was saying it through the voice of a character, but I think it's very wise. He said, what we do is any new technology that came into existence by the time that we were a late teenager, we think is boring and ordinary. Mm-hmm. Anything that came into existence over the time that we're in our 20s, we see as being exciting and an opportunity for career growth. And anything that we experience as new once we were past kind of the age of 35, we see as a threat. And mm-hmm. I think that's very true, actually. It's not true for every individual. There are some people. When I did that first piece of research into coaching in virtual reality, I asked for some volunteers. And as a general rule, it was younger coaches that wanted to experiment with that sort of thing as a general rule. And then there's one lady who said, oh, I'd like to have a go. And she's in her 80s. Mm-hmm. So it is about it isn't the case that if you're past a certain age, you can't cope with it. It's about mindset. And there's a natural tendency to, away from change, change that's outside of our control. So I suppose, my message is you're able to get change within your control when you choose to engage with it. And most of it becomes intuitive once you play. I notice it now. I got my children and they use certain pieces of technology and they are much faster at using it than I am. And I'm experiencing the same thing I remember my parents experiencing, where they're doing it too quickly for me to catch up. And I think, I'm a techie guy. I know how these things work. I find it relatively natural to be able to catch up. And they move from one screen to another. And I'm just saying, look, can you slow down so I'm seeing what you're doing? Because I can't see what you're doing. So yeah, it is the case, but it isn't purely on age. It's about, there's lots of different factors that are at play there. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
So let's have a look at some technologies. So some of these are here right now, and some of them are coming or might be coming. Right now, the biggest technology that's disrupting coaching, no doubt about it, is big digital coaching providers like Coach Hub. We're not the only ones, but there are plenty out there now. Coach Hub is a particularly big one. And what it's doing is it's changing the economics of coaching, which is a significant change. So organizational buyers of coaching have always wanted to bring in coaching at scale, but it's very difficult to do it. Coaching is very expensive because you're buying skilled people's time, and that it costs money. And particularly if you're wanting coaching to be provided to people that are at a more junior level, the relative cost that you're paying on the coaching as part of their salary becomes higher and higher to a level where it becomes unjustifiable. And because you're engaging with, as a general rule, extremely small businesses and sometimes independents, if you're a big global provider with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of employees, it's just not manageable. The pure admin of having to engage with these people across different time zones and matching them and keeping up to date with what's going on and getting invoices set up and all of that is just so great that it's impossible to manage. And digital coaching providers have come along and said, look, I've got a solution for you. We'll do all of that hard work, and we're going to pay the coaches less per hour. And I'll explain why that's not an issue in a moment, or doesn't have to be. And we'll pass on some of that saving to the organizations that are wanting to buy the coaching in, so they can get it at scale around the world. It can be to a high level of quality. They're outsourcing all the quality assurance as well. The matching is done. So actually, as an HR manager who's overseeing coaching for hundreds, maybe thousands of people around the world, all you need to do is do a procurement process and then meet with the provider once a month or so just to check that everything's going okay, and the provider's doing it all. That's a huge amount of value, all the coaching and all of that admin overhead taken off for a cost that's actually lower than where you started from. So it's extremely attractive from a buyer's perspective. From a coach's perspective, immediately it feels like it's a threat, because the way that I've run my practice is I charge by the hour, and I charge a level that looks like this, and then a provider saying, I want to charge a level that looks like this. Well, that's a gap. I don't want to lose the money. But the difference is that as a coach, when you're running your own practice, all of that business development work you are having to generate yourself. The way that coaching has been found in the 90s is a great example. This is exactly how it worked, is through your personal network. So I provide coaching to an individual, and because it's good, you recommend me to somebody else, and then I find work that way. And then I can phone people up and meet people at conferences and try to generate some work myself. And because it's so much time invested just in meeting people, and it's such a low chance I'm going to just get given any work, I have to charge a high rate, because otherwise I can't make ends meet. I need to be able to get an income. With a digital coaching provider, Coach Hub will do all of the selling for you. So as a coach, you can just sign on, show your availability. You can still run your own private practice if you're wanting to do that. And then the coaching that you'll do through Coach Hub, yes, it will be at a lower rate, but what it's doing is it's making you more available to more people. And so it's actually democratizing that process. So it isn't just about the personal network. So yeah, that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that it's an ethical solution, or it's not the ethical solution to the problem, and it doesn't have problems of its own. But what it does mean is that this isn't just an exclusively bad thing that's taking coaches' incomes and halving them. That's isn't actually what's happening.
So but that's also just another mindset, isn't it? Like, like you said yourself, oh, why should I pay you when I can get all the money myself? And what I found, and this is another reason for which we are actually doing these summits. I'm doing this summit. We've been doing several summits until now. It's exactly about collaboration, because some people get hung up on, I would rather have 100% of $100 than have 70% of $1,000. So they are hung up on the percentage, not on the value. So why should I pay you $300 when I can keep them to myself? But you never make that money because you don't have the system. Like I said, like with your system and your product and your company, you provide that to them. And so that's, again, just another mindset, which I would think it's kind of like a, scarcity mindset. People don't actually see past that point. I've had several situations with people in the past whom I said, listen, I'll bring you some clients, and then, this is how much it is, and then you get so much. And then they go, well, why should you take a percentage if I do all the work? If I work with a client, why should you get any money? Or how much money are you getting for if you're paying me $100, how much are you making from the client that I'm working with? Well, why is that of any value to you? It's like, I'm bringing you extra clients, but they don't get it. That's, again, just another mindset. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, and I think, and the truth is that for some individuals, it isn't the right option. So if you've got a really successful private practice, and you think it's going to continue, then digital coaching provider isn't the right option for you as an individual. Yeah. You might choose to do it because you want an easier life, but it's there is no at the moment no shift in the coaching profession that is forcing every coach to have to do this. It's sending those coaches that historically would have been looking for more work, for lots of different reasons, and putting them in a position where they don't have to do that quite as much, and they're able to then do the coaching, which as a general rule is what they like doing. So it's not just a bad thing, as well as obviously it's not just a good thing. There's ups and downs to it, but I think as a general rule, progress means more people are getting access to coaching, and so I'm a fan of that. And obviously I'm at Coach Up, and so I like it. I think it's good. Absolutely,
I'm with you on that one.
We're now also starting to see the introduction of artificial intelligence into the world of coaching. Now, some of this is actively happening right now, and some of it is in experimental stage, and some of it is maybe a little bit earlier still. Artificial intelligence is happening as part of coach matching algorithms, and that's, as a general rule, helpful. It's not flawless, but it is something that speeds things up and increases the likelihood of a good working alliance between coach and coachee, and so that's in there. That's good. There are artificial intelligence robots, speech bots that have been created in order to be able to conduct coaching conversations, and there's been good research out that demonstrates that when you set a robot up with some clear, narrow objectives in a coaching context, this is not just general research, this is about coaching research, that actually the AI bot produces better outputs than a human coach does.
Oof, that's gotta hurt.
Well,
for a lot of people.
It's relatively predictable, because human coaches, by our nature, we do follow our intuition a little bit, and we are curious, and so we ask questions that take things off at a little bit of a tangent. Whereas a coach bot will never do that. It can't do it. It's been programmed with the process. So if you as a buyer, again, from a buyer's perspective, if you as a buyer want a bunch of coaches that are going to follow the grow process, you can invest a whole bunch of money in training some internal coaches and lose the internal time for them to be able to do that. You can bring in some external coaches, and coaches that will just follow grow on the external market. They're relatively cheap, and in fact, there's very few of them. I think that most of them would want to do more than that, but it's a possibility. Program in a bot to follow the grow process, and it will follow it every time in exactly the same way.
Yeah.
And so you can guarantee consistency. And of course, the price of sticking in a robot to have a conversation, as opposed to a human who's going to charge you a lot, there's no competition. You guarantee a level of quality, and the price is much, much better, and the scale is limitless.
Yeah.
So
you are in favor of using robots for coaching?
I am absolutely 100%. I can't overstate how much in favor I am of using robots to coach in situations where they will produce a better outcome for coachees than a human will. So setting a goal.
How many rotten eggs did you have thrown at you so far?
Oh, yeah. Well, the truth is, and this is my point around that 2x2 matrix before.
Yeah.
The more that you understand the technology, the less threatened you get by it.
Yeah.
So one of the narrow contexts that coach bots are brilliant at is helping a coachee to crystallize a goal, because the bot will patiently ask, what do you want to achieve? Could you say that in fewer words so that you can communicate more clearly? By what time are you going to achieve it? What evidence are you going to see that makes that clear? What stages are you going to have to go through to achieve this goal? All of those questions that help a coachee to really get really clear about understanding exactly what they're doing. A bot will do it more consistently than a human will, and will do it better. They'll get a better outcome. And as a human, I find those questions really boring. I can't spend, an hour-long coaching session just asking somebody to keep going down to more and more granular detail about what goal they want to set. I want to be asking them creative things. I want to be talking about their emotions and getting in there. And robots can't do that yet.
And
they
don't get bored or annoyed.
Yes, exactly. And so within those contexts, I think robots mean the better outcome for coachees. So I think ethically, I should be behind that. And they're doing things that actually, if coachees would go through a quick coach bot before they meet me as a coach and they know exactly what they want to achieve, then I can do some really fun, intuitive stuff with them, which makes my job more pleasant. And it means coaching gets to more people as well, which increases maybe the need for human coaches as well. So I think this idea that a robot coach is coming along in order to steal coaches' jobs, I think if you as a coach have a job that looks like what those bots can do, then you probably should be out of a job. Like, it's not a very
there is a famous quote by Arthur C. Clarke, who was a famed physicist, but also a famed science fiction writer, who said, if a robot can replace a teacher, then it should. And it's kind of the same here with a coach. If you're replaceable by a bot, then maybe you need to upgrade your skills. Maybe you got to come out of the 1950s or 70s or whatever.
Yeah. So I'm not, despite everything that I keep on saying, I'm not an evangelist for technology.
Well, but it sounds like you are, but yeah,
okay. Well, exactly, yeah. And I think people get the sense that I am because I like to talk about it. But I think what I'm trying to do is to increase awareness around it. So the message we should be taking as coaches is, have I been trained to deliver coaching in a way that a robot could easily replace me? Well, I should be aware of that. I need to change myself. There are some things that a robot can't replace. A robot cannot be human, even if it gets developed to a point to which it can realistically create the illusion of being human. And there's a chance that at some point, probably in the next few decades, that something like that is likely to be able to happen. I can show you some videos if you're interested of it looking like almost as if it is acting human. Yeah. But it isn't human. And so that experience of just being with a human, that's something that a robot cannot replace. And the skill of just being human as a coach is actually very tricky to master. Even though it's like the simplest thing, it's the most intuitive thing to us. We're so, as coaches, we love our little box of tricks that we've got. I've got this model. I'm going to take you through this model. It's got a new little acronym, a new word that spells out something, and I'm going to take you through these steps. A robot will beat us every day of the week on that kind of thing. The things that they won't is when I'm able to say to a coachee, oh, when you said that, I just felt something in my side. What do you think that means to you? Robot doesn't feel that, doesn't have a side. So yeah, I think it's there. It's doing good, positive work for coaches. It isn't being used at scale at the moment, but it's almost certainly will start to in the next 5 to 10 years. Yeah. And because we're talking about the speed of evolution in technology, it might be even way faster than that. Yeah. But don't tell everybody about it. Well, just wait for the next couple. Yeah, we'll get there. So, and there's one more use of AI that is worth pointing out, which is artificial intelligence as a use in reflective practice. So the ability for an AI tool to sit alongside you while you're doing a coaching session, and then to produce some sort of report that suggests, oh, did you know in that last coaching session, you spoke 60% of the time? What do you think? Oh. Slap on the wrist right there. Yeah. Or did you know that in that last session, 70% of your questions were closed questions? Yeah. Hear us, and there's a tool. I am trialing it at the moment, so it exists. You can use it. There's a tool that will identify moments at which a coachee had a moment of insight and give you a little recording of that moment so that you can see what it was that you did that helped that, and what it was that you did that stopped it from going any further. So that you can then reflect on that, which Otherwise, the best situation you'd have outside of that tool would be to go to supervision and the supervisor to ask, what happened in that last coaching session, and you to try to remember, which is nowhere near as good. So AI's got plenty of value to add. I think the more that we understand it, the less threatened we'll feel by it, and the more able to incorporate it into what we're doing, the better.
Awesome.
There are a couple of other technologies that are not really here yet, but are coming extremely quickly. And so it's worth just knowing that they're there and just keeping an ear out for them. One of those is the metaverse, and you'll see Facebook has rebranded to Meta. And so it's a big push for them, and they're not the only ones at all. TikTok pushing into it, Microsoft is, Samsung is, Google is, and everybody is wanting to push after the metaverse. Apple is, that's a very big one. In 2024, Apple's going to be bringing out a device that does not need a phone to work, and will be a pair of some sort of headset that sits on your head. And so you'll be able to make calls and do that sort of thing without a phone. And so there will be some people who think, well, instead of getting a new iPhone, I will get I don't know what they'll call it, the i headset, and it'll sit on my head, and then I'll be able to do all of the phone stuff without ever having to take my little visor off, in some combination of augmented reality, virtual reality. So it's that is coming. It's coming extremely quickly. A huge amount of money being invested in it, and if we've got time today, I will show you what it looks like. Blockchain technology, I say this is beyond the horizon because it's beyond the horizon of coaching really at the moment, but actually blockchain is being adopted more widely, I'd say, than metaverse technology is in a corporate setting. And blockchain is it's not particularly new really, but it's the concept of, instead of going to a centralized record for what's happening in a network, that you would have a decentralized record. And so that log of what's happening is kept at everybody who's connected to the network on that blockchain. And what that means is that when you go to the bank and you say, I'd like to withdraw $2,000, and the bank says, well, you have only got $2 in the bank. At the moment, all that you can do is tell them that you think that they're wrong, and then they'll just tell you that no, they're right, because they're the bank. The bank holds all of the information, and if the bank says something, it's the truth. There's no other option. On blockchain, everybody's got the record, and it's held anonymously, and so there's no privacy issues. But in terms of that one centralization of power, that concern is taken away. And so those big technology players, where we think, why is it that Facebook owns all of the personal data of more people in any country's got in it? That worry is taken away because that information is distributed across the blockchain and is replicated, and so there's lower risk of fraud and that sort of thing. In the coaching space, it could significantly impact the economics of coaching in terms of the way that we sell things, because blockchain tokens could act as a record of who's got what coaching, and that value could change over time. So it's I won't go into loads of detail on it, but it's an interesting space to be watching. And I say here be dragons because wearables are something that are around now. Plenty of people have got an iWatch, that have got, it's just called Apple Watch, isn't it? That just sits on their wrist and keeps a track of all kinds of things, heart rate, how many steps they've done, cortisol levels are probably being tracked in it secretly. This information is there, and we're able to use it for nudges and things like that. And at the moment, there are almost no, in fact, I'm not aware of a single coach that uses wearables as part of their coaching practice, when the data that's being generated from them is extremely valuable and might be helpful in a supervision context, or even live in a coaching session, or for reflection in between coaching sessions. And so I think there might be something that comes out, but it's a little bit unknown. Maybe there's dragons there, or maybe not.
This could also come, as an electable, like basically you, the client, would you like to hook your, Apple Watch device to this Zoom call, so we can track your responses and reaction, your unconscious responses and reactions to the intervention, the coaching intervention we are having, which will provide more info and more data and more insight into your inner experience as we move along with the session, which you yourself consciously are not aware of, right?
Yeah.
So So some clients would be like, oh yes, please, I would like to know more. But others like, oh no, don't do that. You're prying into my inner world of privacy and whatnot. So, going back to what we were saying earlier.
There's some really fun stuff coming out. There's lots of technology, neurotechnology, where you can control things through the power of your brain. That's literally, technology exists. All we need to do is for it to become more affordable and out at scale. But there's quite a nice tool that's available right now. You get a band that straps around your head. It tracks your brainwave rhythms, and then it will play an audio file to you, which is recording. It plays a beat to the rate of your heart. And then through a meditation exercise, then you will notice what you're doing to the heart rate. And there's no other way to track that other than like putting your hand there, in which case you're having to engage consciously in two things, which is extremely difficult. But using that kind of technology, particularly when you incorporate it into metaverse technologies, then you could have that sort of experience live in a coaching session and influencing what's going on.
Yeah.
So I'd really like to show a couple of tools of the sorts of things that people can use. I'll tell you the names of the tools as we're using them. There are, of course, there are other tools available, and so I wouldn't. I take these as ideas for doing your own research rather than recommendations of those specific products, but they're quite nice. So here we go.
Awesome.
So there's a tool called icebreaker.online. All I'll do for this one is I'll just show you what it looks like as a facilitator running this. So you can do this as a coach, of course. You do it as a team coaching exercise or any sort of team leadership. Pick a deck of cards. Let's choose this one just as an example, and you put in the question. What would you like to achieve today? I'll just load for a moment. Here we go. So I've got an invitation link, which I can just hit copy, and I can paste that into, our video chat that I'm having in my coaching session. And when people log in, they're not going to see the invitation link, but they will see this selection of cards. And so everybody who connects in, coachee or the entire team, they'll have a look through these cards and they think, what do I want to achieve today? Maybe I want to get things done. And this looks like a good little toolkit. So you have a nice little look at the picture. You can see there's a good variety of pictures there. And you can click yes or no. If you say no, obviously you can go back and choose a different picture. If you click yes, then you've selected that picture. And then now I'm in my facilitator's screen. So it's giving me a list of, this would populate with everybody who hasn't yet chosen. And so it's waiting till everyone's done. And then when I start presenting, all of the cards would be listed across the bottom, and I can then click on each person's card to say, this person chose that image. Sam, would you like to describe what that means to you? And so with a big team, it works quite well. In a one-on-one session, it works equally as well. You're able just to select the card and talk about it. It remains shown at the bottom there. But it's a nice way just to put the control in the hands of the coachee. And of course, it's exactly the same experience from a sort of functional perspective as a set of picture cards that often people have. In fact, I have a set of MetaFox cards right under their laptop here that would be, this same sort of set, but it would be, through postcards. So that's just a nice little exercise. As a coach, it's very likely you'll have done something like that before, experienced it having been done to you. And so you're able to access that and do it digitally. And then it's a nice experience. It doesn't have that. There's lots of benefits to it, really. If you're going to do it on video, to try to have the physical cards and, put the laptop screen down to say, which of these cards do you think describes you? It's very clunky. It's not very nice. When you're doing it even in person, you carry around a deck of cards, and if somebody accidentally spills some coffee on one, that card's ruined, really. You don't want to take that card out to somebody else. Once one coachee has been fiddling around with all the cards because they insist on picking them all up and smelling them and kissing the one that they like most, and then you hand it to your next coachee, you just think, that's not very sanitary, is it? Why did we put up with that for so long? This one, of course, doesn't have those issues, and multiple people can look at the same picture at the same time. That
does this tool have an analytics showing how many people pick this card versus another card?
No, no. It's beautifully simple. I mean, that's why I like it. That's what I've shown you is basically all of its functionality.
Okay,
There may
gotcha.
be some other bits coming up in the future. But it's designed to do a nice, simple task, and it does it in a nice, clean way. So,
yeah, got it.
So that's that one. It's using technology in a way that enhances coaching. This is what I mean by superhuman coaching. If you were to do that with a coachee, you are presented to them as somebody who is completely in control, is well kitted out for this, knows what they're doing. It's just a nice experience, and it helps to bring that creative element that, of course, physical picture cards would do. If you wanted to get a little bit more tech savvy with it, though, you're able to do something like Wombo Dream. Again, there are other options that do this kind of thing. I'm not going to explain what it does. I'm just going to ask you, Jen, as an example. Let's just say that you and I are in a coaching session.
Yes.
What would you like to achieve from our time together today?
Well, okay. I would like many things. I would like to achieve many things. Let's narrow that one down. In what respect? In what field or direction?
Which one would be most important to you?
I know you got to say that. I was just waiting for that question to show up. All right. So I would like to achieve more clarity. That's what popped into my mind, my head. More clarity.
More clarity. Anything else you'd like to add to that? Is that descriptive enough, or would you?
No, I think that we're good. Yeah, I think
just
that's
more clarity.
Yeah.
And if you were to choose one of these art styles, just go with your gut. Any of these that look attractive to you.
Can you scroll further down? Yeah, further up. Yeah, I think it was the second one.
That one. Go back.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's happening now is there's a little AI algorithm that is taking those words. Oh, it's just so interesting, isn't it?
What is that? That's not what I picked.
Well, you said more clarity, and you chose, throwback as the style, and it's generated this as an image. If you had chosen any other words, even if you'd chosen those same words, it would give you something completely different every single time. This is unique to you. Nobody in the entire world has ever seen this image before. It only exists for you now. So in a coaching session, I mean, I've got no idea why it's created this, but as a coachee,
that is incredible.
Fully in control of being able to say, well, what does this mean then about you? So you chose more clarity. What's in this picture that reveals something about your current situation?
Well, if I look at that, it's like she's only got one hand. Wow. So this is totally freestyle right now, freestyle interpretation, right?
Yeah. And what this is doing is it's taking this idea of these pictures, where it's saying, here's a set of pictures. Pick which one of these ones that I've already pre-selected through some kind of criteria. Which one of these buckets do you fit into? And with this one, what we're saying is, I'm going to generate a brand new piece of art that never existed before, and it's only based on what you've put into it. And what it's generated here is completely random. I'll show you. I'll show it you again. We're going to choose exactly the same. More clarity. I've chosen the same art style. How interesting. I wonder why it's doing that. It's this just same.
And you know what? Look, what's up with that?
So again, I mean, it's showing some. I don't know what it is that's making it do that. But that's interesting. There's something built into the AI that must be picking up on something. Maybe it's the art style. I don't know.
All right.
But as a coachee,
yeah,
you look at it, and the thing that you noticed was, she only got one arm, and in that one, it looked like there was shading on the skin, and then there wasn't any shading at all on the on what she was wearing. It was
Yeah.
definitely a female, wasn't it? You know, it definitely looked
Yeah.
like a human being. It was a picture.
Yeah.
And some of them are not. Some of them are a lot more abstract. But what you get from that is the coachee then noticing some things and then having to apply it to themselves, where it's only been created because of what I put in. So when I say more clarity, you know, maybe that means I'm cutting one arm off because
Yeah.
I'm looking for so much clarity and I need more ambiguity and need to accept that that's just part of reality. I don't know, you know, you can interpret it however you like, and that's the joy.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And it's so interesting, you know, because it puts this out, and it almost feels like there's no connection whatsoever to the starting point of, you know, like, I was talking about clarity, and then it comes this photo, this image, this picture. And, you know, it's kind of like asking the brain to do some lateral thinking to find connotations and understanding and meaning between clarity and that.
yeah,
And some weird stuff can come out of it, right?
yeah. So it's well, gosh, what's the word for it? I can't remember. If you read my book, Superhuman Coaching, I've got a chapter in there about that, and it talks about the research as to what the psychologists would use to describe that sort of thinking and how it's powerful, and how actually talking on video purely closes that side of the thinking. It's not literally sides of the brain, but you know, that side of our thinking ability right down to actually become less creative.
Yeah.
This forces us to just have to think
Mm-hmm.
ambiguously, abstractly about things, which really is very empowering. So I'm aware of time.
And you know what's very interesting, that you can actually, because we're talking about technology, you can actually take this and transform it into an NFT, and that'll be your
Yes.
personal NFT, and take it next.
Yeah. So that previous image that we created no longer exists. It's just, I went back, and so it's not there anymore. I can download it as an image, and so I could share the image with you as the coachee after the session for you to take away. You can get it printed on canvas, or you can mint it as an NFT, and then you own it, and it's done. And there are plenty of tools out there that are starting to do this. I think One Bow Dream is very simple and very quick. Some of them you have to wait a few minutes for it to generate, whereas as you saw, that you can do that live in a coaching session without being too disruptive. In the interest of time, I think I'm going to skip on to talking about virtual reality. And to demonstrate this, the first thing that you're going to see is, because this is extremely new technology, really. I mean, it's been around for a long time, but in terms of it being available to consumers, it hasn't developed to a point yet where it's a very smooth process to get it up.
Yeah.
So if you want to join a video conference, you click a link and you're in. You might need to wait 30 seconds to be let in. But with this, it will take a good couple of minutes for me to load it up, get the screen to share onto this so that you can see what's happening. So I'm still going to be able to hear you, but I won't be able to see you while I've got the headset on.
I'm a geek, so I don't mind.
Do you have a headset?
No, I don't actually. I have Apple devices. I don't have Android.
Oh, well, 2024 is going to be the year then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. It's just loading the app now. That you'll probably hear it talking to me and me signing myself in and that sort of thing. Just need to wait patiently. And like I say, this, you can see that it takes longer than it ought to, you know, for this kind of thing.
In VR, use the tablet in front of you to log in.
All right, image is lighting up.
Yeah. Can I make that full screen? Okay. So you can see it's got me on a chair. If I was, I'm standing up at the moment, so if I were sitting down, it would feel very much like I'm sitting in the chair. And I look to one side, it's demonstrating on the screen what I can see through my eyes. So I've got the world out here, space. It's just sitting around a table, so it's actually a very simplistic space that we're in. All we're doing is just sitting around a table. So for a one-to-one coaching conversation, or for a small group to be able to sit around and have a coaching conversation, this is just a very simple, pleasant experience. It's much nicer than video, because on video it's two-dimensional. Oh, there my hands look. It's two-dimensional on the screen, and it's very intense. We've all experienced, Zoom fatigue is a thing that people talk about. Whereas here, I can sit back in my chair. I can see my chair is here. Other people are sitting in their chairs, and we can turn to look at each other. And as I turn, everybody can see my head turning. In fact, I've got a camera here. There you go. That's me. So you can see as I'm talking, then it's making me look like I'm talking. That's my avatar.
Yeah.
Take a selfie of us in the space. So this is the nice, simple space. We've got some power to be able to do some fun things here. So I could create a little note. So let's say, well, clarity. It's a little bit more slow than using an actual keyboard, but we'll get there. The technology is emerging. But if I want to get this out of the way, I'll just throw it away and it disappears. So if that's clarity, then we can do some little constellations exercise. We can say, okay, clarity's over here.
Yeah.
Then maybe it feels like it's off in the distance. And then we can have a discussion around how could we get close to that clarity? Maybe I could take my pen out and say, well, if we're here and we want to get over to clarity, which is over there, what would we need to do to move over there? If I go and sit in a different seat, I can see it from a different perspective, and you can see that arrow is just floating it's floating in the air. I can literally reach out and pick up the arrow and put it somewhere. Maybe I could make it a bit smaller. So that's a bit nicer, just to make that arrow smaller. Suddenly the challenge becomes a bit less. I can't reach it in the way, but there you go. So that shows you the sort of power that you've got. You can just sit and have a nice conversation. That's nice, and you can do some of these playful, creative things. If we're moving from one step in the conversation to a different one, then I could change the environment. So we're looking out over space. Maybe we want to talk about something in an urban setting, and suddenly now we're in Hong Kong at night. And now we're having a different sort of conversation, and it feels there's something that happens in the brain that because we've moved location, it's like everything that happened when we were up in space is now in long-term memory.
Exactly.
So we're now in a different space, and we can look around. I can't because of the space that I'm in at the moment. But I could walk up to the window. If I wasn't presenting this, I could walk up to the window and look out on the city. And it's a really nice experience. And I can take us to a completely different space. So let's go up here. It'll take just a moment for this to load. Okay, so now we're in a completely different room. So we're out in the countryside somewhere. You can see we've got some whiteboards around this area here. And if I'm going to teleport all the way over there. So we've got some benches, some nice flowers. I can go and stand all the way over here.
Nice.
And this, if I want to meet somebody for a coaching session, so I'm using the stick for me to turn around so that I'm keeping on facing the screen while I'm doing it. We could go and sit on one of these seats, me and a coachee, and we can just sit and have a nice casual conversation with each other, looking at the landscape. And then again, we could get some note cards out. We could do some drawings. We could go over to a whiteboard. I could get a file off my tablet that I've got here and project it onto the whiteboard, and we can annotate it, and then we could email it to ourselves afterwards. Almost everything that you can do in person, including shaking someone's hand.
And even more than you can do in person.
Yes, it's extremely powerful. It's quite playful. I think it's good. It's good to be leaning into the playfulness of it, because that then takes away some of the skepticism people might have around this sort of technology. And this is the this is the kind of the emerging edge of what's going to become this metaverse that people are talking about, which in practice is going to be multiple metaverses from different providers. Virtual reality is probably not going to be the mass take-up of it, but it does demonstrate the power of the ability to just step into a completely different space. I mean, this is a really nice place to meet people.
Yeah,
it's nice, it's nicer than the same old video conference in the same room. We can go to different rooms in different cities. I can take us to, in fact, I'll just quickly do it now. 360. So we're currently in this room that's over I'm not sure which country this is in actually, but we're in some rural setting. And now we're hovering over Paris. There's the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
So we're not in a room anymore. I'm literally floating quite high up in the sky. This isn't going to be for everyone. There's going to be some coaches that don't enjoy the experience.
Yeah.
So you can get a 360-degree image like this that is based on the floor, which makes it maybe a little bit more comfortable for some. And something like this is extremely inspiring and gives you a real systemic lens on what's happening. You know, if you live in Paris, maybe you could say, wow, that's my office and my house is all the way over there. And look, every of these buildings are filled with people. What a network that I'm part of. What history is here? What part of time am I participating in? So some of the insights that can be generated through an experience like this, and remember, when you've got a headset on, everything else is blocked out. This is the world. So it isn't like being in a video conference where you've got emails popping up in the background and the document you were working on this morning is still there because you haven't closed it and then I've opened up the coaching session. All of that is completely eliminated. We're just in the present moment in a nice coaching session. I can still see what the time is. My watch on my hand is still there. So it's not completely eliminated, but it's a nice relaxing environment, and it's the best kind of use of technology that I think you can have, because you forget you're using the technology, because once you're in it, you just have a nice conversation.
I love it.
So I'll take off the headset, and while I'm doing that, I will talk about one of the biggest challenges that people raise about let's stop sharing around virtual reality is people say, oh, well, what happens, you lose the human element, you stop being able to see facial expressions.
Yeah, exactly.
At the beginning of 2020, people were saying exactly the same thing with going on video conferencing, you lose all your body language.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you do. You get different things in VR. It's not better. It's not better, it's different. And it's not worse, it's just different. So, to think about what we're using and using it intelligently, I think with any of these technologies or anything else people are coming across, it's possible to really enhance our coaching with it.
I love it. I love technology, and I myself am, thinking more and more. And actually, the other day I was talking to another. I was having a different presentation the other day, which was again talking about the metaverse and doing things digital and Web 3.0 and stuff like that. So that's the direction where it's all going, and you can jump in the wagon or just not jump in the wagon, but then you're gonna stay continue to do things in your old way. And like you said yourself, if you have an established business, if you are booked 3 months in advance, maybe you don't really care about this stuff right now. But if that's not the case, if that's not you, then you would want to care about it, because that's where it's all going, like it or not.
Yeah, it's good to be aware of it and then make informed decisions. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been
great. Yeah, absolutely, Sam. So let me ask you, where can people get in touch with you? How can they learn more from you? Do you have any programs, courses, products that you are offering? How can people get in touch with you?
No, I think connect with me on LinkedIn. I always like to make new friends. And then you can get Superhuman Coaching on Amazon, or I will, I'll send you a separate link, and if people use a code, they can get a discount on it. I'll send you something so you can share.
Perfect. Yeah. We'll provide that.
Cool. But yeah, you know, keep up to date. I write articles on LinkedIn quite regularly with just things that I'm noticing, and so, you know, if you're interested in coaching technology, I tend to be writing about it or in contact with people who are writing about it, and so yeah, you'll probably find that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam. Thank you so much for your time and for your presentation.
Lovely to be with you. Thank you for having me.
All right, everyone, we'll take a quick break now, and then we'll see you after the break, or we'll see you in the next day for another amazing presentation or presentations. So take a quick break and make sure to share with us your thoughts, your ideas, your key takeaways from this presentation. Share them with us in the Facebook group, and we'll see you in a few minutes. Or like I said, I'll see you tomorrow. Depends which comes first. So take a break. We'll see you soon.